Hi, everyone. A warm welcome from the unceded and traditional ancestral territories of the Coast Salish peoples, the Musqueam, the Tsleil-Waututh, and the Squamish peoples, so the First Nations. And we're very thankful to have the opportunity to live and work on these lands. My name is BRYAN Buggey, and I'm the Director for Economic Transformation and Climate Action at the City of Vancouver's Economic Commission. And I'm joined here by my colleague, longtime colleague, JUVARYA VELTKAMP, Director for the Canada Climate Law Initiative. And together, with many other local actors, we've been supporting the growth of Vancouver's green economy for more than a decade, and working very closely with our sustainability colleagues that have developed the Greenest City Action Plan, the Zero Waste Strategy, the Renewable City Strategy, and the recently passed Climate Emergency Action Plan as well. I'm actually from British Columbia. I grew up here. I've taken all kinds of wilderness survival courses, and I've done Outward Bound, and I've used to watch David Suzuki every Sunday evening. That was all part of my childhood. And those were impressionable times. This was when Greenpeace was here, headquartered here, and incredibly active. So those informed me early in my life, and it makes a lot of sense that even today, the environment is a big part of my passion. But JUVARYA, tell me more about your unique experiences and your background, because it's so complementary.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. And hello to our audience all around the world. It's so nice to hear your story. We've known each other for 10 years, and I know bits of it, but putting it together like that, it's really nice to hear what motivates people. I have to say, being part of and getting to work on the Greenest City Action Plan has to be a career highlight for me. And I got to work alongside people like yourself and dozens, if not hundreds of people who have inspired me and have shared their wisdom and their way of thinking with me. And I think that's important, right? There are so many different ways of thinking, so many different ways to make decisions and different values that can inform our decisions. How do we provide enough food, shelter, energy for what's going to be 11 billion people on our planet by the end of the century? And how do we do it and stay within our planet's limits? Right? Right now, 26 of the wealthiest people on Earth own as much as the poorest 3.5 billion people. So something is wrong with that picture. And then today, I think you get the new, what are they called? There's the new papers. There was the Paradise Papers, and now there's the Pandora's Papers, and people still don't want to pay their fair share. And I think this is a problem that we're working on around the world, and it needs to change.
So let's talk about Vancouver for a moment. And before we get into the green economy, just maybe set up a little context about the city and the city region itself. And we love Vancouver, of course, and we get lots of positive feedback about what a beautiful city it is. And we should note that our economy is incredibly diversified and strong right now, and it's been that way for many, many years. It's a resilient and diversified economy, and it's also culturally vibrant. And we're a green city, of course. More than 482 hectares of natural areas, and almost 99% of our residents are within a 5-minute walk of a green area or a park. And the Greenest City Action Plan, it's all wrapped up. It's been a decade-long effort to make Vancouver a greener place to live, work, and play. And it's a widely acclaimed plan with 10 distinct goal areas covering off everything from our air and water to our buildings and transportation and of course our green economy. And we've made significant progress on 17 different targets. In fact, we overachieved on 7 of them. And you can see these successes all over our city. We have bike lanes. We have 330 kilometers of bike lanes. We're seeing way less driving replaced by biking and walking. In fact, 54% of trips made within the city are done by walking, biking, or public transit. And we have the highest electric vehicle adoption rate anywhere in North America. So all kinds of cool stuff. And there's even stuff that we can't see, our new buildings emit 70% less emissions than when they were being built in 2007. We're sending 30% less waste to the landfill than we used to a decade ago. And the average distance driven by our residents is now 37% less than it was 10 years ago. So lots to celebrate. But JUVARYA, tell us more just about the economy itself, the green economy, and what's been happening there.
Oh, I get to talk about that. I love talking about the green economy. It's a passion of mine. I will note that I acknowledge and respect Greta Thunberg's frustrations and green economy, blah, blah, blah. I get it. But I think green economy is about action. And so that's what I think was very compelling about the Greenest City Action Plan, is that it's a climate plan, but it has green economy embedded right at its heart. And I think that's important. If you look at the latest IPCC climate report, it's no question now, it's without question that man-made emissions are leading to the global overheating that we're seeing and the climate change that we're seeing. So it doesn't take long to then think, okay, we need a new economy, we need a new energy system, we need a new agriculture system if it's our emissions that are changing the planet. And so, you hear a lot about the Paris Agreement and this idea we need to limit global warming to under 2 degrees, under 1.5 degrees. And that can seem kind of inconsequential, a couple of degrees, really? Does it matter that much? But the truth is they've looked at the Ice Age, the last Ice Age, and temperatures were only about 6 degrees cooler on average. So that gives you the context, right? All of these degrees, they make a big difference, and the whole face of the planet could look so different with a few degrees. So the International Energy Agency has mapped out, can we get there? Can we get net zero emissions that we need to do in time? And, the window's closing. We're going to see a lot of the changes that we're seeing. They're going to continue. But we have still an opportunity, but it might be a matter of months, because their pathway says we need to stop all oil and gas development by 2022. So we've got a few months to get there. So there is a window. We got to make the most of it. And so climate and the economy are two sides of the same coin. We got to think about the economy differently. And that's what we were doing in Vancouver starting in 2010, right?
That's right.
God, 10 years ago now. And so we looked at the green economy. We looked at what are the metrics to measure the green economy. We started developing new metrics. It's hard to do, but it was important, and it gave us some yardsticks to measure progress by. So we looked at green jobs. We looked at businesses greening their operations. We said, how do we help these businesses, especially small, medium businesses? What can we do to support them? This is not easy work. We need to learn from each other. We need to share our approaches. We thought about how is climate policy going to impact local businesses? And there's risks, there's change, there's also opportunity. I think, we, being in economic development, we wanted to focus on what is this opportunity? How do we daylight that opportunity for businesses so they can make the most of it? So then we looked at green building codes. I mean, there's a lot been written about how building retrofits are so essential for our transition, right, to lower emissions, and they can create jobs. And we took it a bit further, didn't we? We looked then at the technologies that need to go into all these buildings.
Yeah.
And that creates a big market. Just in Vancouver, we found a $3.3 billion market for things like heat pumps, heat recovery ventilators, high-performance windows. And so that's jobs in these local manufacturing firms, right? And then some things we're not going to manufacture here, but we then had a roadmap to say, let's get better relationships with those international suppliers. Let's map it out so we know, okay, this is what we can build, this is what we can trade, this is what we're going to export to others to help them. So I think, we had these win-wins we created with business, wins for people, wins for the planet, and that's kind of where we went from.
So, embedding sustainability metrics within our economy And taking action, it really means that our urban economy here has become more resilient. And I say by going green, we've actually created a more competitive economy. Globally, we're more competitive now than we have been in the past. So clearly, going green has not been bad. It hasn't slowed us down. It's been good. It's been good for business. It's been great for innovation. Thriving clean tech cluster here, world-class clean tech cluster. And of course, it's created this foundation for an economy of the future. So, despite all the environmental constraints, the economy has expanded by 40% since 2010. So let's talk a bit about the lessons learned in this journey. We've come up with 5 takeaways from this experience. One of them, of course, is around engagement and how much engagement matters. And the citizens of Vancouver, more than 45,000 citizens got involved in the creation of the plan and just participating throughout the decade. And when people get involved and when people get engaged on the goals and the outcomes, they care more. And we certainly saw the passion showing up in our business community as well. So that was something we want to figure out how to continue that momentum. The second lesson, of course, is around data. Data really matters, and we want to stay rooted in the science. We want to make evidence-based decisions after all. The third one I get most excited about is around how regulation can stimulate innovation. And, I like to, whenever I'm talking to counselors, it's about the story of don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to be assertive or aggressive. The business community can respond. They will respond with new innovative products that can make a difference. And they'll respond with research and innovation and continue to create jobs because those regulations are in place. And this has been especially true in our green buildings market. Another one that has really crept up on us is around how much equity and inclusion really matters. So we learned that we can't address the climate issue without accounting for people first. We have to make people a priority in this, and it has to be all people, especially the marginalized and the underrepresented groups in our society. So, policies can have unintended consequences. And we want to make sure that as we develop these policies, that they're very thoughtful, and this inclusive policy framework must be the norm as we look to the next 10 years. And then finally, leadership. Leadership really matters, and we need bold champions for our aspirations, of course, and we hope that leadership inspires others globally. And I know, JUVARYA, you have a lot to say about leadership.
Yeah, I'll draw some parallels here, shall I? So with COVID, I think we've seen how critical it is to have good leadership and good governance if you're going to survive a crisis, right? And good leaders will create that space where people can share their ideas, you can challenge the status quo without fear of reprisals. And if you do that, you create what they call psychological safety. And that's so critical to having a good team environment. And we need that good team environment to build resilience. We're going to need a lot more resilience in light of the sort of uncertainties that we face. But if you don't create psychological safety, then you have fear, right? You're scared that you're going to be punished if you make a mistake, or that your ideas are going to be ridiculed. And if you create that kind of a space, we start to shrink our world, right? We start to not share our ideas and bring them forward. We kind of get stagnant, and we don't take as much action, and then we don't problem solve that effectively. And we need to be problem solving to fight climate change. It's a real shock to me, but today, even 30% of adults are still bullied in the workplace. I think that's shocking. What a loss of productivity, what a toll on our mental health. And that is not the kind of workplace where we're going to be able to tackle and fight climate change. So leadership is critical. And then along with that, governance. Good governance is critical as well. Governance is what will set the corporate culture from the top. And that will determine what are the values that we're going to prioritize in our decision making.
Leadership can be defined in so many contexts, but I want to acknowledge our municipal councillors and mayors, both past and current, when they determined that we should be the greenest city in the world by 2020. What a difference it made for city staff and colleagues at the Economic Commission as well, in terms of working towards these goals with a kind of a purpose, with a vision. And sure, it was aspirational, but it was also, I would call it work with a purpose, if you like. So leadership really does count. And, I must say, not all is good. We've painted kind of a rosy, beautiful Vancouver picture, but doesn't mean that we're out of the woods by any means. Our air quality here, just to use one example, 9 times worse than it was in our baseline year of 2007. We're experiencing wildfires now that are completely out of our control. Pretty much every summer, that smoke is coming into Vancouver. And this is a big challenge for our health. It's a big challenge for, even tourism. It's not just, it's impacting our economy as well. The second one is, despite all the tremendous positive changes in our building codes and all that new construction, we still have a current building stock that is significant, that's still way too dependent on fossil fuels. And then, of course, our Paris targets. We have a booming economy. We've reduced our emissions by some 15% since 2010. Sounds good, but we have a target of reducing emissions by 50% by 2030. So we're nowhere near hitting those goals. So, the City Council has recently declared a climate emergency because of that. So let's talk about, looking forward. What do we need to do next? And finally, again, JUVARYA, I'd like you to speak to this one. Is really about better corporate disclosures and managing climate risk at the corporation, in all of our businesses. If you could speak to that.
I think sustainability used to be about this nice to have public benefit, but we're not sure it's going to cost us money. And, slowly over time, we shifted that conversation, right? We said sustainability is about often making money, saving you money. You can save on your energy bills. You can attract these fiercely loyal customers and the best talent. You can improve your asset value. And so it became not about cost center. It became about value creation. And now the conversation has shifted really rapidly, I think, where sustainability is also about risk. And how are we going to avoid massive value destruction? You can't afford not to do anything about climate change anymore. Most of us will not forget the summer of 2021 and the havoc that climate change has caused right around the world, which is new maybe for some, not new for many. And so businesses really need to start understanding this. The whole premise of our society is a stable climate. Where are we going to plant our food? Where are we going to build our houses? Where are we going to locate our critical infrastructure? But now the climate is no longer stable. And so our models based on historic weather patterns are going to be outdated. And we need to really understand this and what does this mean? Businesses need to understand, are you going to have the same profitability? Are you going to have to close down because of extreme weather for a day, for a week, for a month? And so at Canada Climate Law Initiative, what we do is we work with businesses and decision makers with boards to help them understand these risks so that they can prepare. Because we need to have that strong and capable leadership to be able to manage this transition. Currently, only 7% of boards have climate competence and know how climate is going to impact their business.
So, we've brought forward, a fairly positive story on so many things. And I feel like we see momentum now right across the world. We're seeing it at major corporations and institutions, and starting to recognize that there will always be these knock-on effects that we're going to have to manage very, very gingerly. But I think at the end of the day, it's really become about economic transformation. We need to really think about the way we live and consume and work and play and change things quite dramatically, but it doesn't need to be scary. And can actually be framed, this dramatic change can be framed as something pretty exciting. Can be a huge economic opportunity that we can step into.
I think we're seeing a focus on, regenerative economics everywhere. And this is the idea that we can meet the most important needs of our society and stay within planetary limits. So you have the city of Amsterdam, rolling out donut economics, and they say, we're going to do everything and inform our decision-making with this model. That's huge. 3 million people move to cities every week, so we need sustainable infrastructure. A billion people still have no access to electricity, so we need renewable energy and smart grids. And half the world's food is wasted every year while 1 billion people go hungry. So we need sustainable agriculture, and basically we need all cities to be green cities.
Thanks so much for sharing. That was a great talk.
Elbow bump.
Yeah.